For many people, Gladiator is held in the highest regard as one of Ridley Scott's best films and an absolute epic. But now, 24 years later, we have a sequel with Gladiator 2, but was it a fine return to the Colosseum or an unnecessary Chapter 2? Now, before we get into the film's quality or lack of it, let's look at how Gladiator 2 has done in its first weekend in the international markets. While $87 million isn't bad, and it's actually Ridley Scott's biggest ever opening in the international box office. Now, at the time of recording, the film is yet to release in the US, Canada, and China, but we'll expect it will do well in those regions. And I think overall for the box office, this will probably be a success because it is a sequel to Gladiator, which was a beloved first film. It has a stellar cast, including people like Denzel Washington, who has his own fan base who can come and watch this film. And also it is directed by Ridley Scott, who, yeah, he has had a patchy record over the last 10 years, but he still has films like The Martian, Blade Runner, Alien, all to his name. And so you never know if you're going to get another hit from him. So I think that will all those factors in play, as well as some other ones, I think that will bring people to the cinema. Of course, there are films like Wicked coming out at the same time, and some people are going to do like a Barbenheimer sort of double feature of that. I don't know how well that's going to do compared to Barbenheimer, but it still brings attention to the film. In Gladiator 2, the story follows Lucius, who is the son of Maximus from the first film, as he seeks revenge as well as seeking to return glory to the people of Rome. As we see on screen here, Pedro Pascal plays Lucius, and I thought he gave a fine performance, but the character just never became a character of himself. He just wanted to be Maximus 2.0, and he got told advice like be more like your father, but he just became his father. And in the early stage of the film, we never know much about him as a character himself, so it's difficult to know how much he changes and what he's all about. Instead, it is just like, here's Maximus again, but just not as good. Also, the reasoning why he left Rome in the first place and how he's identified when he gets back is all pretty stupid, and that links into him not using his name of Lucius for a big chunk of the film, which, again, it just wasn't necessary. I don't know why they chose to write the script in that way. And so when we finally get the reveal that he is in fact Lucius, it's like, okay, great. It's all that information we already know.
That is brand new information!
When it comes to an iconic performance like Russell Crowe as Maximus, it was always going to be difficult to follow that up. And this film, it's trying to sort of look at the legacy of Maximus, but it just falls into the whole member berries thing just way too much. It's like the whole film is Gladiator 2, remember Maximus. It's like, oh, remember Maximus? Maximus is so good in this bit. He'd have been so great if he was here now. It's like, remember Maximus for that? Remember remember the pants he was wearing? It's all that sort of thing with Maximus. It's like, oh my god. It makes you think like maybe they should have just scrapped this whole sequel film and just done the Nick Cave script where Maximus is traveling through time.
I had the idea, I knew how to bring him back through a portal back to the real world. I'm not going to tell you what it isn't because somebody will steal it.
So yeah, it's clearly evident that the film struggles with that shadow of Maximus hanging over it. And I think as a story, it just never really gets going. It relies so much on the visual storytelling and the spectacle, but you need something to grab onto and actually connect with. Like a lot of these characters, it's like, okay, that's a cool action scene. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But I don't care. I don't care if they die. I don't care. I don't care if this guy dies or if that monkey dies. You know what I mean? Like it's the same level right now. Whereas in the first Gladiator, we followed Maximus on that journey for vengeance. He had that great chemistry with Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix. It was just all so well done. It's a bit of a miracle considering the production and how quick they had to get the script going and everything. But it was lightning in the bottle at that time. It's just so great, and they're trying to replicate that lightning in the bottle moment, and it just failed miserably. Ridley Scott is now in his mid-80s, and he wants to keep making films until he dies, and that is commendable. That's some work ethic, but it is quantity over quality. He's just throwing as much as he can do at the wall and seeing what sticks. And in recent years, The Last Duel I thought was good, and The Martian from 2015 was probably his last big hit. But that was, nearly 10 years ago. And for many years, Gladiator was seen as a one-and-done movie because we see our main character go all the way to the end. He dies at the end of the film, and that's it. The story's complete. But Ridley disagrees.
The obvious thing is, listen, address the two survivors, the mother and the son.
See, I disagree with that completely because at the end of the first Gladiator film, Lucius survives, but his story is not begging to be told. What we've seen at the end of that film is a character's journey come to an end, and that's it. There are going to be surviving characters from that, but just because they survive doesn't mean we have to see what happens next. We can think in our own heads what happens to them if you want to, but I never really had any feeling of that anyway, because I was just so focused on Maximus. So yeah, I think you could have done a second Gladiator film about any gladiator. You know, it's not tied to Maximus or to his family. You could have done any gladiator, as long as the Colosseum is there. Like, I think that is the main character to bring back. The Colosseum, Rome, all of that. You know, that is what we want to see again. I don't have to see anything linked to Maximus, but you know, it's easy to go for that nostalgia yet again. Now, a big news story surrounding Gladiator 2 is whether it's historically accurate. And I think when it comes to that, if it can be as accurate as possible, great. But if it wants to tweak or adjust a few things to sort of help aid the action intensity, then fine. Add a few elements here and there. I'm not going to be, moaning about it, as long as it is beneficial to the story. And for the most part, there are things which did happen back then in ancient Rome. But there are a few things like sharks appearing in the water, which I'm pretty sure did not happen. However, I would like to see that actually take place. I'd love to see like a deleted scene of them bringing the sharks into the Colosseum. That'd be fantastic. There's also at one point these baboons, which are like, or these monkeys, which are like vampire looking and really like sort of sci-fi looking creatures, and I just didn't really understand what the idea was behind them. So there's a few things here and there where you're like, what? It just pushes it too far. You're like, what's going on? And then Matt Lucas is in the film as an announcer. And I think that would mainly be for British audiences who will clock onto this. But just seeing him in that role, it's just like, it just completely took me out of the film. It was like, it just reminds me obviously so much of his skits and his sketch shows with Little Britain and Come Fly With Me. So I actually thought he did well in the role. It's just when you first see him, it's like, bloody hell, what's he doing here? In Gladiator 2, there are a couple of actors returning in previous roles, one being Connie Nielsen as Lucilla. But I just thought the story really let her character down, made her look like a bit of an idiot. And yeah, I thought she gave a decent performance once again, but yeah, the script did not help her one bit. Then we also have Derek Jacobi who's back as one of the senators, but he has very little to do in this film compared to the first, and he just feels like he's there just for that nostalgia, like, oh my god, it's him from the first film. The best thing about Derek Jacobi being back is hearing Grace Randall's pronunciation of his name.
Derek frickin' Jacobi!
In the first Gladiator, we had Joaquin Phoenix play Commodus, and now in this sequel, we have these two brothers, one played by Joseph Quinn and one played by Fred Heckinger, and they're just evil little twerps, really. I think that they were decent in these roles. One's a bit more looser than the other, but they're not as integral to the story as, say, Commodus, because there are other characters at play here. But yeah, they were fine. I think in the latter stages, though, there could have definitely been a few more scenes around these characters and around what happens to them, which would have been useful, because it does sort of move at a very quick pace. And I think pacing is actually an issue for the film in general. Sometimes it does move quite slowly, and sometimes it just moves way too fast. And I think the action scenes, though, like obviously they're very much involved. The action scenes were good, but as I said before, the story, you're just not connected to it. Like, it's just spectacle, and that's the big issue. Another new addition to the cast includes Pedro Pascal, and I thought his character was quite underwhelming. They could have done so much more with this character, but, again, like with some of the other characters, the story just fails to support him, and you're not connected to anything that happens. I mean, even when he's in the Colosseum, I'm not really that bothered about whether he survives or whether he doesn't. It's just really disappointing, because, like, when you're looking forward to watching Gladiator 2, you're looking forward to returning to the Colosseum, seeing these big battle scenes, but I'm watching it all, I'm nodding off, because, like, I don't care. I don't care what's going on. I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. I don't care. Make me care.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
As I mentioned earlier, Denzel Washington is in this film, and he is definitely one of the biggest positives about it, because any scene he's in, he elevates it. This terrible script and dialogue, he makes it at least a bit compelling, and he turns that water into wine. And his character Maximus is definitely the most engaging. That story is something a bit different. It's not just a copy and paste job. And yeah, he's described himself that this character is an opportunist, and so it's just interesting to see the different moves he makes on this chessboard. A lot happens with his character towards the end, which I think could have been paced out a bit better. It all moves quite quickly, but overall, Denzel at least makes it bearable. And if anything encapsulates my feelings towards Gladiator 2, it is the soundtrack, because in this film it's from composer Harry Gregson Williams, and I think he's playing hide and seek with it, because where is it? It's lifeless. The only time it kicks into gear is when he uses Hans Zimmer's score from the first film, because that music's incredible, and I still listen to it to this day. They even use it in the bloody credits as well. Like, that's the only time it actually does anything. And again, it's just like the whole film. It's like, we're going to take a few things from the first film, try and morph it into the sequel, but it's just a crap replica of that.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think you can probably guess the answer to that question, because Gladiator 2 had the spectacle up here, but at the expense of the quality. I think Ridley Scott had the same writer as Napoleon, and I'm not surprised, because it just feels like they were so obsessed with filming these big action sequences and trying to rely on that visual storytelling, but the story itself was not compelling enough for me to care. And with that, it means you can make it as epic as you want to. If I don't care, then I'm not going to connect to what's happening, and so it's just empty calories basically. So it doesn't matter. And I'd love to have seen a Gladiator sequel which was at least trying to be up to the standards of the first film, but it just feels like with the way he's going about his work right now, it's just getting out as many films as possible and not putting enough time and effort behind crafting a decent sequel. And it's just so obvious with what they've done here, with it being so obsessed with Maximus all the time. So yeah, Gladiator 2 was a real letdown for me. I'm frustrated because I think the actors here had the potential to really produce a great movie, but we're always restricted by the issues with the script. And yeah, so disappointing. But let me know, of course, your thoughts on Gladiator 2 if you've seen it. And what's your favorite sequel? Like, what's the best two? Like Toy Story 2, Empire Strikes Back, Terminator 2, what is it? Let me know in the comments down below. One thing is for certain though, that Gladiator 2 has inspired me to rewatch Gladiator again, and in the future, if I ever do a Gladiator double bill, I'll watch Gladiator, and then I'll watch Gladiator once again.
Joey, this is Die Hard 1 again.
Oh. But we watch it a second time, and it's Die Hard 2!
As I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe for more. And if you want to watch another video, on screen I have my review for Red 1, as well as a video that YouTube have recommended for you.